That small Roosevelt dime rattling around in your pocket could turn out to be far more than 10 cents. It might be a window into a moment of upheaval at the U.S. Mint, a tangible piece of mid-century economic drama, and a rare chance to own something unexpected. In 1966, just 2 years after silver vanished from circulating coinage, the newly clad Roosevelt dime rolled off the presses in staggering numbers. Over 500 million struck at the Philadelphia facility alone. Yet only a tiny fraction display the quirks and missteps that send dedicated collectors' hearts racing. Today we're zeroing in on that unassuming date, exploring everything from the legislative battle that removed silver, to the microscopic die cracks you can spot with a loupe, to the jaw-dropping auction results that turned everyday pocket change into thousands of dollars overnight. The transition from silver to copper-nickel in 1965 wasn't just a cosmetic tweak. By early 1965, silver bullion prices had shot past the melt value threshold for dimes and quarters, threatening to drain the nation of its coin stock as people hoarded, melted, and speculated. Congress responded with the Coinage Act of 1965, authorizing the Treasury to strip silver from dimes and quarters and reduce it in dollars. When those clad dimes hit circulation, the mint rushed to meet demand for change in a booming economy. In practice, that meant long hours, fresh dies, and presses pushed to their limits, whereon dies accumulated faster than usual, occasionally producing coins with doubled devices, slight misalignments, or weak strikes where details didn't fully transfer. Looking at a standard 1966 clad dime, you'll see Roosevelt in profile, his hair and coat lapel crisply defined, surrounded by the mottled fields characteristic of the copper-nickel clad composition. On the reverse, the torch, olive branch, and oak sprig form a familiar emblem of peace, victory, and strength. The real magic happens when you spot something out of the ordinary, a faint ghost of an extra, "In God We Trust," tucked behind the primary letters, or a ribbon of raised metal curving just inside the rim where the die sprue fractured. Collectors categorize these into die-doubled obverse, DDO, die cracks, broken dies, cuts, and broader strike errors like off-center or broad strike pieces. Each category has its own pathways into rarity and value. Die-doubled obverse examples often show the clearest evidence around Roosevelt's ear, the date, or the motto. A subtle doubling along the rim of the date might be invisible without magnification, but once you know what to look for, it jumps out. Die cracks manifest as thin, raised lines that meander across the fields or break the rim entirely. More extensive breaks produce cuts, where a piece of the die literally falls away, leaving a blob of metal on the coin. Off-center strikes occur when the collar that holds the planchet shifts, leaving part of the design missing. Though for clad dimes, anything off by more than a millimeter is exceptionally rare and highly prized. Numbers tell the story of scarcity. Though over 500 million 1966 dimes were produced at Philadelphia, the estimated number of true die-doubled obverse specimens in mint state might be in the low tens of thousands, scattered across special mint sets and business strikes. Dramatic cuts could number in the mere hundreds, especially those with major die breaks that affect Roosevelt's chin or the torch flame. Market values reflect that scarcity. In circulated grades, a modest DDO example might bring $20 to $30, but jump into certified mint state and prices climb steeply. $75 for MS63, $150 for MS65, and scarce MS67 pieces occasionally challenge $300. A major cut on the rim or a broad strike error certified MS64. MS65 can fetch $400 to $600 at major auctions. The crown jewel errors, those pristine SMS dimes in deep cameo with mirror-like fields and strong contrast, have realized four-figure sums. Several high-profile finds fueled collector interest. One legendary discovery came from a hoard in central Ohio, where a safety deposit box held unopened rolls of special mint set dimes from 1965 to 1967. Among them were examples with deep die cracks and even a handful of off-center strikes that had never circulated. Auctions at the Central States Numismatic Society show saw these pieces go for 2 to 3 times their typical values, cementing 1966 as the new frontier for modern-era dime enthusiasts. A second story involves an electrical engineer in Texas who found a 1966 dime in pocket change bearing a strong die crack from the rim through Roosevelt's jawline. He submitted it to a major grading service, which authenticated it as MS-64 with a prominent cut. The coin sold for $425 in a private sale, and the engineer later shared the proceeds with a local historical society to fund coin education workshops, proof that modern error coins can have real-world impact. Beyond errors, proof like business strikes and special mint set varieties command attention. Though not technically errors, certain SMS dimes display proof-level fields and cameo contrast due to the polished dies and specially selected planchets used in those sets. Collectors treasure SMS coins graded MS-67 for their razor-sharp detail and frosted devices against mirror-bright fields. Recent trends show SMS Roosevelt dimes from 1966 climbing steadily, from $50 to $75 in 2015 to $250 to $300 by late 2024 for MS-67, with exceptional pieces breaking $400. When assessing condition, pay particular attention to luster and strike. A true mint state 1966 dime will exhibit full cartwheel luster, a bright, circular flash when rotated under a light source, and crisp delineation on fine details like the torch flame and Roosevelt's hair capillaries. Weak strike coins often have flattened hair strands and a soft outer rim. In circulated grades, mid-grade pieces, XF to AU, may still show doubling or die cracks, but the damage from wear can obscure those flaws and reduce premiums. A well-preserved 58 Australian dollars cameo example can draw $75 to $100, while lower grades, VF or below, generally stay within the $20 to $40 range unless displaying extreme errors. Storage and handling matter, too. Avoid touching coin faces, handle only by the edges, and never attempt home cleaning or polishing. Even light rubbing can remove the delicate original luster that influences grade and value. Store error finds in inert flips or archival capsules. Airtight holders protect against toning and environmental damage. If you plan to grade, choose a reputable service and consider third-party imaging to document your coin's condition before submission. Comparing values across grading services can yield additional profit. A coin graded MS-64 by one major service might sell for $100, while the same coin graded by another could bring $130 due to perceived differences in grading strictness. Study population reports and census data from grading companies to find underpopulated grades where holes exist in the market. For example, MS-66 DDO examples are scarce. Only a handful appear in census reports. If you locate one at that level, you're looking at a potential home run in auction settings. Beyond the numbers, these coins carry human stories. A single die crack can link dozens of specimens, miners, bank tellers, and everyday people who spent those coins oblivious to the mint's momentary press issues. When collectors share images on forums or display them at clubs, they recreate a communal detective story, unearthing the mint's hidden mistakes and preserving them as collectible chapters in American numismatic history. As we wrap up this first segment, remember, every dime has a story. Whether you find a subtle DDO, a dramatic cud, or a pristine SMS cameo, you're holding more than metal and history. You're joining a community of collectors who delight in uncovering the unexpected. Keep your eyes sharp, your loop ready, and your patience intact. Next, we'll turn to another intriguing modern-era rarity, the 1971 Roosevelt dime, where a different set of errors and varieties awaits discovery. Stay tuned. This journey through the overlooked side of dime collecting is just getting started. Shifting gears from the mid-60s upheaval at the Philadelphia Mint, let's land in 1971, a year etched into the broader story of U.S. coinage by the ongoing impact of clad composition and the Mint's quest for flawless production. At first glance, the 1971 Roosevelt dime looks almost identical to its 1966 counterpart. Franklin's dignified profile, the torch olive oak reverse, and that familiar rim of reading. Yet under the surface, subtle variations and a handful of notable error types set this issue apart as a modern-era treasure hunt in its own right. By 1971, the Mint had largely settled into the copper-nickel-clad formula introduced in 1965. Demand for change remained high. Coins changed hands by the millions every day in a still-growing economy, but die-making and press operation had smoothed out many of the early hiccups. Still, the sheer volume of production created its own opportunities for mistakes. Fresh dies wore down over thousands of strikes. Planchets occasionally arrived with thin or thick spots, and collar misalignments produced occasional off-center strikes. Those imperfections, when caught before heavy circulation, are what collectors prize today. A primary attraction for 1971 enthusiasts is the die-doubled obverse, often cataloged as FS901 in specialist guides. Rather than the dramatic doubling seen in some early clad half-cents, the FS901 shows a light ghost image around the lettering, especially Liberty at the top and the date at the bottom. In lower grades, this can look like brushing or bag marks, but under magnification, the doubling is crisp and uniform, betraying its mechanical origin. Examples graded in the MS64 to MS66 range draw steady bids, with mid-grade pieces selling around $50 and higher-grade gems approaching $200. Repunched mint marks also appear in the 1971 Denver issue. Small d mint marks were punched twice, once slightly off to the left, then rocked into place, resulting in a shadowed effect visible next to the D under magnification. These RPMs aren't as dramatic as those on silver dollars or Morgans, but they're subtle trophies for the keen-eyed collector. RPM examples graded brilliant uncirculated can command $75 to $125, depending on the clarity of the second strike. Die cracks continue their cameo role in 1971 varieties. One of the more sought-after breaks runs from the rim at 10 o'clock across Roosevelt's forehead, faint enough to escape notice at arm's length, but obvious under a loop. Such coins surface sporadically. A clean MS65 example fetched $325 at auction in late 2024. Less common are cuds, those blobs of metal where a portion of the die broke away entirely. Coins bearing a cud along the lower rim, affecting the foot of the torch on the reverse, are prized at $400 and up when in mint state. Broad strike errors and off-center strikes remain highlights for many collectors. Anything missing more than a millimeter of the design is rare on a modern dime. One off-center 1971 piece, missing nearly 30% of the portrait, realized $1,100 when offered privately after being found in a dealer's pick-through box. Broad strikes, where the coin flares slightly beyond the collar, flattening the reeded edge, are more common but still valuable. Ungraded examples in collector forums trade for $50 to $75, while encapsulated MS63, MS64 specimens sell for $150 or more. Proof and special mint set varieties add another layer of depth for advanced collectors. Though the official special mint set program ended in 1967, proof dimes continued in annual proof sets. Some 1971 proof dimes exhibit proof-like fields with deep mirrors and frosted devices, what graders call DCM, deep cameo. A PR68 DCM 1971 dime might trade hands for $200 to $250, especially when accompanied by original packaging and certification. Auction houses have fine-tuned descriptions to highlight these nuances. Lot notes mention specific dime markers, tiny polishes or nicks that tie a specimen to a known variety, so buyers know exactly what they're bidding on. In one 2025 auction, a trio of RPM, DDO, and die crack errors from the same die were sold together as a collection, realizing over $1,800 in total. That grouping underscored how different error types can coexist on a single die, each telling part of the production story. Stories behind individual specimens often inspire the collecting community. A Virginia dealer once pulled a 1971 DDO from a bag of circulated dimes and, suspecting something special, submitted it for grading. The resulting MS65 DDO piece sold for $475, funding the dealer's purchase of a World War II tribute cover that he later donated to a veterans museum. Another collector in California discovered a 1971 double date variety, where the date lug shows a faint extra 1, on eBay and, after verifying it with variety specialists, sold it for $600, sharing half the proceeds with the original seller. Condition drives value sharply for these modern-era coins. Mint state examples graded MS-67 are exceedingly scarce. In late 2024, only 8 MS-67 DDO specimens appeared in grading service population reports, and none graded higher. When one surfaced at a Dallas show and sold for $950, it set a new high-water mark. A sharply struck MS-67 broadstrike error from the same year couldn't quite match that, but at $825 it proved the market's appetite for top-tier modern mistakes. For circulated grades, XF to AU examples of DDO or RPM types still carry premiums. And $58 DDO might sell for $35 to $45 in dealer retails, while EF45 to EF40 pieces run $20 to $30. Cuds or die cracks in those grades bring slightly higher marks, up to $60, because the flaws often survive where better than the underlying devices. Hunting through circulation remains an enduring thrill. A 10 times loop is the clear knife-in-drawer tool. Inspect the date, run your eye across Liberty for doubled serifs, and roll the coin to catch any raised metal along the rim. Compare suspect coins to online galleries and auction photos, or check with local coin clubs for in-person comparisons. Sometimes the best finds come from the unlikeliest sources: a pocket full of parking meters, a jar of coins at a flea market, or a loose roll from a bank. Storage and grading tips echo those for the 1966 issue. Handle by the edges, skip any cleaning attempts, and lock your prize away in inert holders. Before sending coins to a grading service, photograph them clearly under daylight-balanced lighting. Many hobbyists have found that documenting your discoveries not only helps with grading disputes, but also shares the excitement with fellow collectors. Market trends for the 1971 dime have mirrored those of other modern errors. Quiet periods punctuated by sudden spikes when a noteworthy hoard or viral post appears. In early 2024, average auction prices for MS-64 DDO examples hovered around $60. After a collector showcased a dramatic die crack find on social media, prices jumped 25% within 2 months. Timing a sale or a purchase around these ripples can yield both satisfaction and, sometimes, a tidy profit. Looking back, the 1971 Roosevelt dime encapsulates an era of stability tinged with human imperfection. The mint had mastered clad production by then, yet the machinery still left behind fingerprints, ghost images, tiny fractures, and occasional off-center thrills. Each error type maps to a moment when a die snapped, a planchet shifted, or an operator missed a subtle misfeed. Those moments, preserved in metal, link us directly to the sound of heavy presses and the sight of freshly struck coins gleaming under fluorescent lights. Next time you sift through a bankroll or peer into a dealer's tray, remember that these modest dimes carry stories far larger than their 10-cent face value. They speak of legislative change, industrial pressure, and the tiny imperfections that make each minting run unique. Spotting an error, tracking its pedigree, and securing it for your collection is more than a transaction. It's a connection to history's unplanned moments, preserved in alloy and design. So keep that loop close, trust your eye, and celebrate the unexpected. In the world of modern-era Roosevelt dimes, even the smallest oversight can become the centerpiece of a collection and the spark for a lifelong passion.